British people will understand what I mean when I say this. You know those guys who show up in the train station, usually with a large backpack on their back, and they tend to have like red striped like squares on their clothes, like pajama pants tight looking shit. So, do you know what pattern I'm talking about? What's
Yeah.
the pattern called?
Like plain.
Plaid, yeah. They're in fucking like plaid sweaters and shit, and they've got a giant bottle of beer. They've got a giant bottle of beer, and they're playing on their phone, like the loudest, like club music you've ever heard on such a shitty speaker. Like I'm talking Post Malone and like weird Eurobeat and shit. And like they're muttering to themselves as though they can like barely speak. And then they'll just from the floor which they're sitting on. They're not even sitting on a fucking chair. They're sitting on the floor and they'll offer you a drink out of one of their two very large bottles of beer. That was me in the Denpa problem. I was literally that guy. To be honest, I don't have a lot of excuses for myself. I just came off extremely self-aggrandizing, almost like a guy who had watched way too many mob movies and then like tried to sound like a bad impression of people from those movies.
It's over.
I fucking made them, babe.
You made them.
I made them. Um yeah, I mean, the first half of the video wasn't that bad because I was just kind of going over the history of Denpa. But the second half, I like it sounds completely and utterly confused with itself. Like, I don't, it wasn't clear exactly who I was addressing or talking to. Like, I go on this weird, like, unrelated rant about, like, the media ecosystem kind of feeding off of itself and propagating itself through like creating like tidy partisans, but which has nothing to do with the video. Like I think I call myself a centrist at some point. um and yeah, I mean the second half of the video is just kind of really confusing. But the big main point that I want to address that I made in that video is this idea that I was somehow more brave than everybody else for being edgy on the internet and being willing to be so edgy, like touching on territory that most like actual extremists wouldn't go into, not just like fake ones like me. Um, willing to say like shit that's that nuts. I mean, yeah, like I'm the only one doing it, but there's a good reason I'm the only one doing it. It's because this is an undesirable thing to do. Like for the vast majority of people, it would not be sensible to put the prospects that are involved with like their livelihood prospects on the line to be edgy on the internet. Like that is just like it's kind of a really unreasonable thing to expect of people. I should not be going out there and saying I want an army of me's because one me is already kind of enough. Like I do not need and maybe the world does not need a bunch of people going out there and pushing the envelope so far that like the feds are showing up to their house. Like that's just kind of not necessary for most people's lives. I have these weird principles that I've always had on this channel, like since before I made the unsubscribe series years ago, where I wanted to be like off-putting and edgy to as many people as possible as kind of like a pleb filter. But like, I mean, my principles regarding that and free speech aside, or free speech specifically regarding like art aside, um, it's just kind of not a desirable thing. I mean, I directly described in the videos the way that this has negatively impacted me and the ways in which it is undesirable. But I kind of present those undesirable things as like hero, like the fact that I allowed those things to happen is like being like heroic, or like I was like taking one for the, I don't know, free speech. Like I almost describe myself as like a free speech warrior. Um, but like the reason why we would even call something or someone a free speech warrior is because there's like not everybody's a warrior. Like this is, it would just be unreasonable and insane to expect a lot of people to be something like that. And especially in a context where I'm describing the history of a bunch of my friends, people who I respect and enjoy the content of, and then in the second half of the video, just addressing like this list of unnamed, unrelated persons that exist in my own mind. Like, I uh I find that video to just be kind of a confused mess, which is, I mean, not to be unexpected of a guy getting progressively drunk throughout its duration. Um, but it was entertaining nonetheless. The point of this video is to simply point out the fact that I'm not some king, uh, and I do not think, especially for the children at home who might be listening, I do not think it is desirable to copy those very edgy life decisions that I've made for the sake of my art. There's one of me already. One is quite enough. I'm here to do this. I don't need anybody else doing it for me. British. You guys don't fucking know what I know. You guys don't fucking know what I know. This fucking thing, every time it hits a different hour, it makes the chirping sound of a different bird. But you know, I thought it was simple chirping. I thought this was just birds chirping over here, and that was the sound it was making. But little did I know, I didn't actually know that much, because I was standing right over here, cleaning up, putting some things in the trash can, putting some things where they needed to be, and then this fucking clock does its thing that it does with each passing hour, and it starts a chirping. But this time, I hear it a little different. This fucking thing goes, Figaro, 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 and it hits me. It hits me right there that it wasn't chirping at all. It was actually making the sound of a producer tag.